Have you ever seen the movie Goldmember? I believe it was the one with Austin Powers, and it had the fictional character Dr. Evil. And he would be like, $1 million. Now, wouldn't it be interesting to become a millionaire? Like we all say, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire one day. And that's great. But do we say it out of jest, or do we really mean it? Let's unpack that today in today's video. So stay tuned. And be sure to watch the video to the very end, because I'm going to show you how to get there fast. When we first start saving, it's all about trading our time for money. It's what the only resource we have in abundance in the beginning, and that is time. So we have to trade our time for the money, and that's fine. That's an understandable trade. As long as we're committing a good service, we try to sell ourselves at the highest possible price we can. But the trick here is to start saving. And it's easy to say, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire. Yay. You know, by the time I'm 30, I remember saying this when I was in my 20s. By the time I'm 30, I'm going to be a millionaire. Yes, I'm going to be a millionaire. And here I am at 60, and I've never been a millionaire yet. And I sat and thought about it, and I thought, well, why not? Why ain't I a millionaire? And I really started thinking about that and realized that I didn't have any goals in between. So this obtainable goal of, saving $1 million and having being a millionaire seemed literally far-fetched. If the lottery ticket didn't win, then I'd never be a millionaire. So I had to rethink my whole strategy. And one of them was, I remember I was watching a podcast or listening to a podcast or a video, and they had mentioned work at becoming a thousandaire. And I went, what's a thousandaire? And a thousandaire basically is if you've saved $1,000. And that's a good first goal. And it's a goal that anybody in today's day and age should be able to commit to in a reasonable amount of time, a few months at most. But then commit yourself to become a 10,000aire. And then commit yourself to becoming a 100,000aire. And I think that committing yourself and building a plan to becoming a 100,000aire is extremely important. I believe anybody can become a 100,000aire in 5 years or under. Now you might think, well, it's still 5 years. But you'd be shocked what $100,000 can do for you in the long term. I'm going to be going into an example here later on in this video of two people who saved $100,000 and what it meant in the long term of their life. So we have to commit ourselves to doing this. But how do we do this? How do we get to, let's say, $100,000? How do we step through the 1,000aire, the 10,000aire, and become 100,000aire? Because it was Charlie Munger from Berkshire Hathaway who said, making that first $100,000 is tough. I'll call it that. He was a little more abrasive, but it's a tough thing to do, and he's right. I've been a 100,000aire a couple times in my life. As quickly as I've made it, as quickly as I've lost it. So it's easy to not be a 100,000aire again. When I decided to save again and become a 100,000aire, I committed myself to it to get it done as quickly as possible. So step number one is commit yourself to getting it done in an impossible period of time. You'll find that the universe conspires with you when you decide to save. When you decide, I'm going to become a 100,000aire, then what happens is you get there. The whole universe seems to conspire with you and work with you to get there. I was able to save $100,000 in just under 14 months, which is insane. You'd think, well, how could you do that? That's like saving close to $10,000 a month. I wasn't making $20,000 a month. Like in other words, I didn't have 10 to spend and 10 to save. Lots of little things happen, and that brings me to point number two. Every day we're given opportunities for a few extra bucks. Let me tell you what one of them was. I had mined some cryptocurrencies. It was worth about $300 or $400 when I mined them. And I was like, well, I might as well just sit on it. The cryptocurrencies are very low right now, and I'll just sit on it and wait and see what happens. And that's exactly what I did. Well, it wasn't 2 years later Bitcoin and Ethereum just took off. I was sitting on $10,000. What did I do? I didn't go, woohoo, let's go spend that. That's not what I did. I did spend a little bit of it. It was Christmas time and I was able to get everybody nice Christmas presents, and I did spend about 1,000 of it. I decided to save the rest and I put it immediately into that $100,000 fund. It gave us a $13,000 Canadian dollar boost, which was awesome. It really helped. Let me give you another example. I was looking at other investments I had invested my hand into, and I discovered I had one that was not doing very well. That was around $20,000, so I transferred it over, and now I'm getting a much better return on money. I also found that I was able to find secondary gigs that allowed me to really make a lot of money quickly, and I took every single cent of it and put it away. You'll be shocked at how quickly you can save when you can save 100%, because I was wisely using my tax efficient accounts like my TFSA and my RRSP, mainly my RRSP, to invest into this, at least temporarily delay a tax hit on that money. So I was able to invest the money almost 100%. But I still took advantage of the Canadian tax vehicle called a TFSA, which is a tax-free savings account. You put money that's post-taxed into it. So in other words, you get your paycheck, you paid your taxes, and you can take that money and put it in. But any dividends, any increases in that account are tax exempt when pulled out. They're not considered income. So that's another way. Also, make sure you get your whole tribe on board. Get your whole family on board when you're doing this, and make them realize what you're trying to do. You're just trying to save this $100,000. That will make a difference too, because if everybody pitches into it, you'll be shocked at how quickly things can happen. My wife has a small quilting business on the side, and she was able to take some profits from that and put it in as well. And she's watched that increase, and she's been like, that's actually pretty cool. Now, and a really cool thing happens. When you get to that $100,000, it starts to pay for itself. I'm right now getting about an 8 to 10% return across the board, across the whole portfolio, which isn't too bad. I'm meeting the markets. Which means if I apply the rule of 72 to it, if I'm getting 10%, that money will double in 7.2 years. So 72 divided by 10, that's where I'm getting that from. That would allow that money to turn into $200,000 in 7 and change years. Commit yourself to just save every extra penny. And believe it or not, $5 here, $10 there, $50 here, $100 there, it all adds up. If you don't need to spend the money just because you got it in your pocket, put it away. And that's something else I would do too. Every month I would take out an indiscriminate spending amount every month. And it's usually like $500, and that would be for eating out and for treats and for going into, shows or whatever it is. If I didn't spend it, or I didn't spend it all, I'd put it away into savings. Now you'd think, well, I spend most of it, and that's the truth. I actually do spend most of it. I try to have a bit of fun every month with my family. There's been some months where something happens, like I will get a check from the government that is a little bit of a credit right into that savings account. That was another place. On my tax returns, what are you doing with your tax returns? Usually we get a tax return that it's a positive tax return. We're not paying taxes, we're getting money back from taxes after everything has been said and done. So I take that money 100% into savings. Out of that 100,000, probably close to 15,000 of it is tax returns. So I put every extra penny in, and you'd be shocked at how fast it grows. I started out with a zero balance, and 14 months later, I cracked $100,000. I was tickled pink. Now here's the really cool thing that happens. That compound interest, you start seeing it. When you save $1,000, you're like, oh, big hairy deal, like I got an extra $1 or $2 in interest this month. Wow, that's going to make a difference. When it's $100,000, I'm seeing interest payments or dividend payments every month of about $800. So it's like it's putting a payment that I'd normally put in every month automatically that I don't have to put in. So it's literally doubling what I put in every month, which is awesome. And that's the whole power of the compound interest. But should you wait? Should you wait? That's a good question. That's the bonus question here on this 100,000 there. Should you wait? Let me read a story to you. So I apologize. I will have to read the story or else I'm not going to say it right. There's two fellows. Let's name them John and Steve. They heard about saving $100,000 when they were 20 years old. One subtle difference though, John heard the advice and he decided to get at it right away. I'm going to start saving that right now. He was able to be frugal for a few years and saved his first $100,000 by the time he was 25. So it took him 5 years to save his $100,000. Steve, on the other hand, decided to wait until the time was right. You know, time's really not right. And I'm guilty of this. I am extremely guilty of this. But even with that delay, Steve did save his first $100,000 by the time he was 35 years old. So 10 years after John had saved his $100,000. They both saved $100,000. Big deal. What's the difference? Here's the difference. Long-term analysis effect on each of their decisions. Let's assume again they both got a 10% return on their invested money for the long term. And that's very possible. When both of them turn 70 years old, Steve, who started a little later, will have had his savings compound to $2.8 million. So he's got a nice healthy retirement fund at 70 years old. John, who took the advice seriously and took action right away and saved his first $100,000 within 5 years, which was 10 years faster than Steve, at 70, he'll have close to $7.3 million. The whole reason is he's had that extra time for that extra money, that extra 10 years to compound even faster. Because the compounding is really the eighth wonder of the world, because of the fact that, you know, a dollar turns into 2, turns into 4, turns into 8, turns into 16, then 32, then 64, then 128, then 256. You get my point. Compound interest is crazy, crazy smart. So my question for you today is, what are you doing to become a 100,000-aire? Because it's the first step to becoming a millionaire. You've got to become a 100,000-aire before you become a millionaire. You got to become a 1,000-aire before you become a 10,000-aire, before you become a 100,000-aire. What are you doing today? Because every day makes a difference. Every day that you delay is going to hold you up, and it could cost you at the end of the day millions of dollars. So get started on 100,000 today. If you found any value to this video, please subscribe. Consider liking the video as well. It really helps me out and helps grow this channel. And make sure you stay tuned. There's another video we're going to be showing here that's going to be talking about the rule of 72. I talked about it real quick today, but if you really want to understand what the rule of 72 is and why you need to know it, watch the video that's being displayed right now. Thanks very much. This is Frank Thomas. We'll talk to you soon.